Welcome to the Thriving Farmer Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Kilpatrick. Our mission is to inspire, educate, and celebrate sustainable farming. We believe that you can build a profitable, sustainable farm that gives you true farm freedom. Join us as we talk to farmers, innovators, educators, and entrepreneurs to glean their top takeaways in business and life. Hey, Thriving Farmers, Michael Kilpatrick here. Today, I have the privilege of interviewing Andre Cantelmo, who's the co-owner and co-farmer at Heron Pond Farm in Hampton, New Hampshire. Heron Pond Farm is a four-season vegetable farm located on the seacoast of New Hampshire. Welcome, Andre.
Oh, thank you. Welcome.
And Andre and I go back. How long do we go back? I don't even remember when we met. Was it at New England, or was it like, did you come out to something Sandy had, or?
Yeah, I was at a mini conference for like Sandy's thing. It must have been, 10 years ago, or more. Yeah, it was a while. Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah,
Several
it has
conferences.
Yes. And so we run into each other frequently through either like the winter growing conference Sandy does on the frozen ground one, or the New England vegetable growers. We always go and hang out there. So it's it's been a great relationship. Really enjoyed your friendship and just the knowledge you have. You're always my go-to guy on so many different crops. So really appreciate that. So give us a little bit of your background, Andre. How did you get into farming?
Well, I grew up in the city, and my uncle was a farmer. And, I guess everybody has like farming in their blood. I mean, pretty much, my grandparents farmed, but then they moved to the city. But my uncle got a farm, and I used to go and do that in the summers, and I loved it. And I always thought I'd be a farmer, but then I got away from that, as I became a teenager and stuff. But lo and behold, I ended up going to, an agricultural school, studying soil science and soil chemistry, and, still like vaguely thinking that I wasn't going to be a farmer. And then, life happens, and you find yourself in New Hampshire on someone else's farm, because it's like the thing that you know how to do. It's like, oh, I can do this. And in like a week, he made me the farm manager. and then like I ran that farm for 3 years, and I was like, time to run my own farm. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm ready. Yeah. So that's how I got into my own stuff. And I've been doing it for myself for 22 years now, which makes me older than I think that I want to be. Or I started real young. That's it. I started.
Well, yes, we're going to go with that. It's easier to start young than to be old. So let's talk about the farm now. Talk to us about like how many acres, talk about your market channels just briefly.
Yeah. We probably are exactly the wrong size farm. We're not big or small. So we do like 60 acres of mixed production. That varies. Sometimes it can go as low as like 45, depending on how I am for cover cropping and fallow lands, like in my larger rotation, which is really important to us. We always sacrifice acreage for soil health, but that size farm is like, puts us like, tiny in, the respective agriculture in America, but large for our area. And then we do it all, like, we do the farmers market, CSA, we have a farm stand, and we wholesale through a farming cooperative that I help form for the area. Yeah. And that's so yeah, we're right on that $1 million mark, in revenues a year. And, I didn't start out to have a farm like that, but it became about wanting to surround myself with the people, the staff, and have them year round and be able to pay a living wage. And so my farm grew bigger because of, wanting to have, a more permanent staff and pay them so that they could live in this area, which is not a cheap place to be. So,
Absolutely. So you've chosen to scale up that farm. Let's talk about how you made that work.
Well, I think I made it work with making it not work a lot of other ways first. And so, but what we've happened upon now is it's really about the marketing channels. And so like, it's hard to talk about one thing without the other. So, briefly, the CSA has become we've become one of the most popular CSAs in the area because we don't have a box. We don't have a share. We don't have a debit CSA. What we do have is everything that's grown on the farm is broken out into lists, and you're allowed to take, if you're a full share, you can take 3 from each list. And if you're a half share, it's 2 and 1s. But basically it's all there. And in order to maximize and give the customers maximum choice that way, we have to overproduce a lot of other stuff. And so we decided what do we like growing, and where can we find the maximum efficiencies through mechanization and cultural changes in the way we do things. And the bonus of doing it that way was that we had this wholesale market that we could get into. And by building a wholesale market much larger than I ever thought I'd be in wholesale, it enables me to have everything for my retail customer, and I'm producing those things at ridiculously low prices compared to other producers. So I get to achieve what I call this micro economy of scale. So I take what a big grower would be doing with harvest conveyors or harvesting equipment, and I try to find what matches our systems, and then go that way with it. And even though we're on a smaller scale, we're using the type of infrastructure that makes things go so smoothly that our cost of production on certain items are way below what anybody else could produce. So that has helped us. Scaling suddenly became part of the business plan, where it wouldn't have been, right out of the box. It's now a strategy we use. We're we want to get into that market. We want to be able to offer that. How could we scale that? Is there a market? How many different markets are there for that? Where can we put that? And what equipment makes that much more? Let's run 3 different enterprise budgets on that. If we do it this way, or this way. And then it just a lot of times it makes sense to scale if everybody wants to do it. The other thing is we've had opportunity and ran those numbers and looked at what we were going to do, and then all sat around the table and went yeah, but who wants to do it? Who wants it? And nobody
okra.
wants it.
Does anyone want to grow okra?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I don't know. I don't want to disparage any vegetable out there, but
Exactly.
But here's the more common one for you: onions. And so we do an acre of onions, probably an acre and a quarter, because our and they're all retailed. None of that is wholesale. And we have had opportunity to wholesale, and everybody wants us to get into the market. So we've looked at, well, what would it take to scale these things?
Yeah.
And do this. And then we all look at it, and we did all the things, and it makes sense on paper. We can do it. We could capitalize, But no one wanted to grow that many onions. No one wanted that job. So why would you force your farm into, that kind of, going in a direction that the staff, the people that you're surrounded with year in and year out, they don't have a passion for that. So whereas I grow more tomatoes than I can't imagine that I'd ever grow 3 acres of tomatoes. And we grow 3 acres of tomatoes, and that doesn't include
that blows my mind.
cherries. Yeah, but how did that happen? It started this little thing, but now it's it's done so efficiently and so well, and the people love it. They have a good time.
All right, so let's just talk about a little bit of the aspects of scaling tomatoes to 3 acres. So to me, is that indoor or outdoor?
Well, I could count the indoor, but I don't grow that much indoors.
Yeah, it's the early stuff.
I have 3 30 by 96 houses that are tomatoes, 1 30 by 96 that's cherries. But I do have a 3-season tunnel that is 1 acre. That's
The
a hay
Haygrove.
grove. Yeah, and that's an acre.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are two acres out like, field planting.
Okay, so the field planted are probably a mix of determinate regular tomatoes and then indeterminate cherries.
No, the cherry planting, I'm not counting in that. The
Oh,
cherries are managed completely differently. And we're much smaller on cherries. I think we're up to about a 1/4 acre on cherries. And that is starting to scale a different way because we've had different, we weren't going to get into that business, but it seems like, we're still on the fence with that. But
mm,
a 1/4 acre of cherries takes care of all of our retail needs. We have a little bit of a spike that we can wholesale off, but mostly that's a separate operation.
okay.
Most of the stuff grown outside, the only thing that I would include that is a semi-determinant is the plum and paste varieties.
Yep.
And those are
Okay.
grown specialty um, for clients that they basically where they're almost like, it's almost like a custom grow for certain clients that want that.
Mm-hmm. All right. So let's stop on that for a second. The custom grow, is that something where you have a contract for?
Well, contracts, and you probably know this, you've been around the block enough. Contracts aren't worth the paper that they're printed on,
Yep.
but it's nice to have one in
Yes.
theory. So yes, in theory, there's a contract, but we get a commitment to grow for somebody. They commit to standing orders, like how many
Mm-hmm.
pounds per week and season do they want. And if we can, be successful in that relationship, then yeah, that's something that renews from year to year. And it's a good way that is also a big part of scaling, is to make
Mm-hmm.
sure. But if somebody's going to be like, they're buying a pallet of tomatoes a week, right? So that's
Mm-hmm.
700 pounds. I'm going to give them a better price because, well, first of all, it's really easy to move a pallet.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've done the enterprise budget on moving the produce post-harvest. Like that
Mm-hmm.
is like, yeah, it's crazy. So, I'm willing to give the customer 75% of my savings from having it on a pallet. And that seems to be about enough to really tip that and the quality of the product, of course. But now you're in people are surprised to find out that you suddenly are in competition against, the big truck farm, stuff coming in on 18-wheelers. Like it's
Yeah.
got to go through a distributor. They need to get their cut. Suddenly, if you're doing direct into the wholesale market, direct to consumer from wholesale side, there's enough meat there that
Yeah.
you could be competitive and still get a decent price.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right. So then the tomatoes, are those grown on plastic? Are they flat, or are you staking all of those?
Everything is staked,
Okay.
and I've tried it the other way, um, and I'm just not happy with the quality that I
Yeah.
can get in our environment.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
If you're down in Homestead, Florida,
Oh, gosh, different. Yeah, completely
yeah,
different. Yeah.
but
Yeah.
here it's just like we have to be able to get good spray coverage.
Yeah.
On something we've never grown a field crop without you know um,
Yeah.
without spraying something.
Yeah. All right. So then you grow the crop, it's staked. Now, how many times days a week are you harvesting that?
Tomatoes on this farm are harvested every day of the week, 7 days a week.
Oh, wow. So you doing the same exact plant every day of the week, or is
No,
it
no, no, no.
okay?
It's rotated around,
Yeah.
but most plants are not. Most plants it depends on the heat index, and we are picking for a very specific ripeness. I don't know if
Mm-hmm.
you've seen my talk on that, but um, basically the key is most production tomatoes that are being sold in this quantity in the United States are being sold as what's called mature green. And you
Mm-hmm.
can tell a mature green because you can cut it in half with a knife and the seed is cut. If the seed doesn't cut, then it's not a mature green. It like moves around it. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
the but that's what you're competing against. And so if you can get more ripe, you're going to have a more flavor. So now they can get a flavor profile in the 65 to 70% range with a mature green. Whereas when we're doing ours at mature pink,
Yep.
then we still have potential to be up above 95% in our flavor profile, but definitely above 90. So we're going from 90 to 95% in the flavor profile. So we're going to give up 10% of the flavor for about 12 days of shelf stability. And so that is the key, but you cannot not visit a plant less than every 3 days to achieve that. So that's the long answer to your question.
No, that's great. I think that's something that a lot of people don't realize about, when you're trying to think about this scaling thing, you have to understand what the market wants in such detail that you can come in with your own value proposition so you can make the kind of money you need to be at that scale.
Well, because of the flavor profile we get, I mean, like, I think it's insane what we get. We sell our heirlooms in 10-pound flats, and we're getting $28 a flat.
Wow. Yeah.
And that's wholesale.
Yeah.
That's my wholesale price. And if they buy them in a like by the 700, they buy the pallet, it's $26.50. And so, yeah, I mean, and then, but the thing is, when people start buying them by the pallet, you can buy your boxes by the truckload.
Yes.
And then next thing you know, you're making the same amount of money as you made last week at 28 because you're paying half the price for the box.
Absolutely. So let's talk about some of the specialized equipment that you've gotten to be able to scale up to this size. I think the first thing I noticed you were dealing with was potato harvesting equipment, as you had really scaled your potato equipment.
Yeah, we've scaled all of our different specialty things. So we now harvest our greens mechanically, potatoes mechanically, green beans mechanically, and our root crops mechanically, for the most part. And then I'm probably forgetting something that we're doing mechanically, but yeah, those are all game changers and I think that, like, with the potato equipment, to your point, like, we can grow these specialty varieties or just good varieties that we grow because we grow them, and just using that biological farmer mentality, that soil structure is going to give it much better flavor profiles than they're going to get from big production potato farms, even if you're growing similar or the same varieties.
Yeah.
But then the harvesting equipment starts making it, now you're back in the ballpark. Like, my 50-pound bags of spuds are expensive in the open market at like $37. But if you're a restaurant buying a 50-pound bag off of a distribution truck, then you're paying, $35 to $40 anyway.
Yeah.
And so that puts us, but you can't do that without the mechanization. And the great thing about the harvester is it puts it in a bin. And then once it's in a bin, then you can move it in a bin. And once it's in a bin, you can dump it into the soak tank in a bin. And it agitates there and goes into the washer and comes out. And if you want, it can go right into baggers or right into another bin.
Yeah.
And so, you have people inspecting and calling and stuff like that all along the way. You're not eliminating the people, but you are basically, all of a sudden, your economy of scale goes through the roof. Like,
yeah.
I think we ran the carrot harvester numbers together. And so the fastest my crew can pick up carrots undercut and put them into a basket is about 3 pounds a minute. Like, that's about as fast as you can go. And with the harvester, we're running at like 100 to 150 pounds a minute.
Oh gosh, yeah. Yeah, it's unreal how much that drops your cost of production. Now, let's talk about carrots there for a second. So the carrot harvester is a big part of that, but also the cultivation aspect on carrots, because to be able to harvest mechanically, you have to have all these other steps done right.
Super clean. Yeah. I think that you've done a lot of work with that and passing on your knowledge and JM for small people with the tarps. Like, we can't do the tarp thing, but we completely stole your design for the 6 million BTU flame weeder. And I've posted that on Facebook from time to time because I just think it's a laugh riot every time we fire it up.
Yeah, it's so much fun. It's literally, it made my day every day. We got to use that thing. You kick that thing on, it sounds like a jet engine.
So loud. It's
Yes.
this war that
Yeah. And you have like a trail of flame like 12 feet out the back of the tractor.
Oh, it's awesome.
Yes, running that at night is a whole new experience.
Yeah, we've got videos of it at night just for that reason. Like, oh, we want to do it at night, you know?
Yeah.
And you can see the good thing about the at night ones is you can see the bed glowing after you
Yes.
go by.
Yes,
Yeah.
know you're singeing that top half inch and killing all those weed seeds.
Yeah.
So
So yeah, well, I mean, we've moved. You know, flaming is more of like just a cleanup step, and we actually have gotten away from it a little bit because I've been using the tine weeders to well, basically the great thing about using organic fertilizer, and if there's some really great talks about this, is that the release curve for their nutrients is so long. So
yeah,
you put them in and you're like 3 weeks into your crop before they start to like activate in there,
yeah,
which gives you 3 weeks of bed prep time. So we've been going over with the tine weeder and even the basket weeders. I set them real shallow and just go over and over and over. And then and then I go, the nice thing about that is while stale seed bedding, it still leaves the top of the bed friable, so that when you go over with that seeder, you're getting really great soil contact with those seeds.
Yeah.
And then of course it's all about like watering. And I think that the popularity of those Netafilm waterers is just like, that's, and they're cheap. I mean, at $1,200 an acre, anybody could be into this kind of irrigation. And that's just the way to go. And we've gotten it so we're like, oh, we need another acre, just buy another acre, leave it right there, you know?
Yeah.
And so then you get the seeds up quick, and we do the radish trick or the beet trick. You throw a couple of seeds in there and then do that cleanup flaming that you're talking about.
Yeah.
But then the real game changer happened for us in 2013. Like, we were one of the first farms to like convince Colt Crest to like re-enter the U.S. market, that like their product was needed here for exactly this size farm.
Yeah.
And like, if you go in with a set of duos, you can like have like just some cotyledons up, and these cultivators don't ruin the crop. You can go right in there. And then of course we walk right through. We go like, the duos to the sweeps to the fingers. And, and then in the fall crop, because you've probably had this problem, like you can get they'll start to poke, and then you get greening before you can get in there. And Crest has a beautiful set of hillers that just like, they don't bury the crop and mess it all. Like it's just enough to like keep that green shouldering from happening, and just like making them perfect.
Yeah. Build that really high quality carrot that's orange from tip to tip. Yeah. And then share a little bit of the numbers that you're getting on your carrots, because that was something you shared at New England Vegetable Growers. And that's something that I think people don't understand. If you grow a good crop of carrots, the yield you get off that acre is incredible.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is like listening to guys like you, working with other people that have really helped. Like, because so now we do 3 double rows, scattered row now. So that allows you to put more seeds per foot than you could if you're doing single row.
Yeah.
And then also we found that like, okay, again, with this like being the exact wrong size farm. So if you're growing like, we grow like 4 to 6 acres of carrots a year. So if you're growing like, this 2 acre block of carrots, what can I be doing that's different than the big producers that's going to give me the advantage? And so what I did is I looked at like, okay, well, what is it possible per acre? And the possible is when you talk about processing carrots, because that's just biomass. So you're saying, okay, like they get that kind of biomass, but they're only processing quality. Well, if I'm paying extra attention to my soil, extra attention to the varieties, extra attention to the crop overall, can I get processing numbers out of a fresh market crop? And that was my premise there. And, and it's possible. So like we are, when we have our acts together, and in these latter years of my life, more and more we do, then we have seen definitely over 30,000 pounds an acre, and this year we were at 38,000 pounds an acre.
Wow. That's incredible. All right. So something you said there is like you have your act together. Now, it's a very important to have your act together for very specific periods during the carrot's life cycle. Can you talk about what those specific periods are?
Well, I think, I think with it, okay, let's have the caveat that with every crop, the crop is made or braid like years before you put the seed in the ground because of the way so we've got that. That's the caveat. Okay. So then, bed prep is so important in carrots because if you don't have bed prep, you're not going to have weed control, and you're not going to have good soil to seed contact, and you're not going to have a potential for any good germination. But then after that, the critical thing is getting that crop up. And I think people do not pay enough attention to the fact that like the top of that soil should not dry out. And that's why I said it's no joke to have that $1,200 system out there per acre and just leave it.
Yeah. And you're going to run that every single day, even some days, multiple times a day to make sure that never dries out.
Yeah. And it's important exactly what you said, because the other thing people do is they'll put down a lot of water. Well, the seed is sitting in the top half inch.
Yeah.
And so that's the part that's going to dry out, and you're spending money putting water underneath the seed.
Yeah.
And so basically you're just running a pump to make yourself feel better, So, I think like, right. I have to tell you, I know that it's because we have the rest of our cultivation game down.
Yeah.
That like, and we're blessed that way. I mean, God has put us in the position to be able to like import this equipment because, it wasn't currently like available before. And then, just be able to continue with having really specialty stuff. So like that's awesome.
Yeah.
But I feel like after I see that solid line of green, I'm like, oh, my job is done here. That's it. Like the rest of it is like, most of this is up to God anyway. So like, but like I've pretty much done my part there,
Yes.
With carrots, I'm not going to spray it with anything. I'm not going to like, only thing I'm going to do. Like, I think that spraying copper for alternaria is just like a waste of time. So we tried to grow the alternaria resistant varieties. I try to make sure I'm conscious of what my airflow in that particular field is, that I have good air drainage. But, I think, I haven't had any luck trying to like spray my way out of a problem with carrots so.
Well, I think part of the problem with carrots and disease is if they don't have enough fertility in the end of the year, the leaves just age so fast. So you've got to make sure you have that good long release organic fertilizer down too, even though you do not want a lot of nitrogen.
Yeah, you are so right with the nitrogen. People over nitrify so many things, I guess. Like, I found that to be true. Soil tests, what do you pay? 35, 45 for?
They're cheap insurance.
Oh my, they're not insurance. They're like mandatory. Like, what do you do without, what are you cooking without, like, are you putting a blindfold on and like pointing me towards a stove,
Well, it's trying to make a dinner without a recipe and you have no experience cooking. So that's what the soil test, it gives you that recipe for exactly how to make sure those carrots are going to grow well.
Are you turned on to this new Cornell? I was in the pilot project years ago for them, but now it's widely available where they do the biological activity and they have the breakdown of the biology in your soil along with the mineral analysis.
So I have not been using them. I probably should. I just have a local person out here that I like. I like Logan Labs out here, but I probably should be, because you're right. So it all comes back to the biological amount in your soil, because that's what really matters. And so one of the
especially for organic farmers. Specifically, I'm not specifically an organic, I'm not a certified organic plate, but like, it's hard to say what you grow when you're not a nozzle head and throwing, ammonium nitrate everywhere. But so we're relying on the organic processes in the system in our style of farming. And you got to know what the biological activity is, and I'm thinking these new composting, I think that there's a future in that business with these guys I've seen, not anybody local I could buy it from, but they are building compostable blends, and it's all about the biota that they're building within
Mm-hmm.
their blends, not so much even what they made it out of. And I think that's what I would buy compost on,
So they're basically building like a recipe in the compost with the right biological flora and fungi.
Well, right for who? Just
Yeah.
I guess if I'm having amazing, mycorrhizal activity in my soil, then maybe I don't need a compost that's so heavy in mycorrhizal inoculum. What I'm needing is I'm needing a more different beneficial bacteria or
Yeah.
even, microfauna, something, and I think I think there's a future there for somebody, and it
Mm-hmm.
looks like a couple people are venturing into it. I find it very interesting.
Yeah.
I find that part. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I interviewed John Kempf a couple days ago, and I'm just fascinated by kind of the direction they're seeing with the designer compost. And then they're saying, once you get your soil health up to a certain point, yes, you obviously still have to add this and that, but what you have to add is so much less because the soil almost takes care of itself in some aspects. He said you still need to be doing your soil test, you still need to be testing, but you definitely there's a lot less to do because you've built that basically it's a machine down there that's just running itself.
Yeah, and you actually have to start getting. I know we're getting way far afield here, but this is the interesting thing is. So then organic matter in your soil is going to be mimicking a lot of the cation exchange capacities that end up in those thin
Yeah.
sheets of a clay too. And so you do have to become aware, particularly of your calcium, magnesium, and potassium levels.
Yeah.
And okay, so what trade-off are you doing? And the great thing about, more organic matter in the soil is you end up with a buffer. And so it's
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
it's great to be able to have oh, I'm, I have my buffer. Whereas if you're just treating your soil as a medium,
Yeah.
you're not, you got a chemistry set, is what you have.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So that's the other thing John mentioned is he said, we have got farmers who are now getting their field crop fields up to like 9-10% organic matter, which is mind blowing to me. And it's not like they're throwing a lot of compost on. What they're doing is that, 365 days a year, they have a living something on that soil.
Yeah.
And so
I
that
mean,
living,
the zero bare ground philosophy is seriously the way to go. I mean, I think that years ago, you and the Arnolds turned me on to just the first idea is just get that straw between the plastic with with that flail chopper. I mean, the act of the raindrop hitting, forget about you walking there.
yeah.
The water hitting that part between the plastic just annihilates soil structure there.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
then you have this thick mat of straw. And then when you go to move it for any reason, just with your hand, before you go at the end of the season, just move the straw aside. The soil is friable. There's castings. There's life that you can just see moving right there in the pathway. And this is a dead mulch. So now imagine what you're doing with the living mulch between there or out in your fields that you're, taking your field. Yeah. And this has come so far. The best book besides The Biological Farmer, which is an amazing book, but there's that little blue book. It's called Building Better Soils. It's like it's a cheap, it's just this paper thing that you think, what's in this? I think it's even looks like it's been typed or something inside instead of typeset. Yeah, it is amazing amounts of stuff in that book for exactly this kind of thing. And I think people are getting back to it with their use of a spring cover is their winter cover, but then they have a summer soil building mix or summer soil building materials. And then they're going in August, getting those those rye or those oat
Yeah.
covers in earlier than anybody. Like when I first got into this business, we didn't think about a cover crop until the end of September.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
like
Yeah.
now we're like, what can we cover crop? It's
Yeah.
June. What can we put a cover on? You know?
Yeah. So your sections that are on plastic, are you doing any living cover crops between? Do you find anything that works well for that? Or are you still doing the straw?
I'm still doing mostly the straw. I
Yeah.
do have some bare ground applications that stay bare ground
Yeah.
for certain crops
Yeah.
for reasons. But then this year we are experimenting with a couple of different living mulches. And the reason we came to that is we have now broken out our farm into we till. We
Yeah.
definitely till. But we have, I think you've been in my farm. So everything's on a 10 block,
Yep. Mm-hmm.
because that's what the harvest equipment can do. That's what, and then we have
Yeah.
drive rows.
Yep.
So those drive rows now, what you haven't seen, are now all permanently in cover
Okay. Nice.
with a native pollinator plant. And
Oh,
so
nice.
they have like low creeping ones, and then like later in the season they get up bigger. And so this started to us having the philosophy like, oh, this is breaking up any soil erosion. This is like really helping break up the fields. This is giving microhabitat for like those beneficial insects that we want. What can we do between and it turned out we could manage that. Because like what we ended up having a couple of times when we tried these covers between the black plastic rows is like completely unmanageable situations. Like, things that grew way too big. We didn't have enough of a nurse crop established, and all the clover like washed to the end of the row, and then you just had this burst of clover, like just a mess. And so I think we are finally getting to the point where we're confident enough, and we know the limitations of certain things, like never go with annual rye after like June 6th here,
Yeah.
like it's just not going to work. And like, I think building up that kind of knowledge inventory has started to help us get more and more into like what we can do with the living mulches and what is just not going to work on our farm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. It's one of those things that, like, you take the principles of, okay, we want to cover the ground as many days as we can, and then you have to regionally adapt it, and then actually specifically adapt it for your farm, and then specifically adapt it for the year.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And something that like, you can't forget is it takes 16 round bales of straw per acre to
Yes.
cover plastic.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so now we're getting the straw from fallow ground that we are doing soil building activity on.
Mm-hmm.
And the above ground biomass doesn't do anything, is nothing compared to the below ground biomass in those situations.
Correct.
But you're still robbing Peter to pay Paul. So as long as you are getting good action out of that straw somewhere on your farm, and that organic matter hasn't left the farm,
Yeah.
then
Don't sell your straw.
I'm still on board with this process.
Yes.
Yeah. But what if? But again, the same thing that's helping build your soils out in the field is because that below ground biomass is more than the above ground biomass. And so when you're doing a living mulch between the black plastic, it's the same thing. And so if you put a dead cover down, yes, it's nice. It's organic matter and it's helping shield the soil, but you're not getting that, that microclimate. You're not getting the conditions for more biological activity, and you're not increasing your organic matter in a place where the very crop you're growing is decreasing the organic matter.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But the best thing, I don't know if did you see Skip Paul's new interseeder that he got?
Yes, I saw that presentation at New England Vegetable Growers, and he was playing with all sorts of different rates and stuff, which was super cool.
Oh, this thing is like now NRCS has one to loan out here.
Okay.
Oh my God. Like, well, broccoli, no brainer. Like, you do those small broccoli crops and you're like, how am I ever going to get a cover on this?
Yes.
Like by the time I got some pictures I should send you. I got some pictures of like the rye is at the same level as like heads of broccoli that are as big as like my face,
Yeah.
And and it's like rye and vetch, like steeped in there. And you're like, aha, this is like,
Yes.
you want to eat the cover crop, forget about the head of rye.
Yes. Yes. If you've been enjoying this episode so far, you're going to want to head over to growingfarmers.com/free resources and download our free resource bundle to help you shave hours off your week and become a thriving farmer. It includes resources such as our 10 winter growing secrets we wish we knew when we started, which is a ebook which talks about the tips and techniques to get better growth in your winter production. We teach things like the simple but counterintuitive principle that trips up most beginning growers, the shape and size of tunnels that are best for winter production, how to prepare beds so they are weed-free and get beautiful lush stands of crops, what to do about pests like aphids, voles, and slugs, how to fast-track your research to fine-tune your production for your microclimate, and how to pack in more crops for higher yields and profits. So head over to growingfarmers.com/free resources and download your free resource bundle today. Yeah, no, I mean, those are the kind of advances I think that it's great. And we can dive into this now is that, it's great to have organic growers, but it's also great to have conventional growers. And it's great to have some of those older nozzle heads out there because there's something that we can learn from every single one of them. And talk to me a little bit about your journey through this, because I feel like you have adjusted your kind of like how you approach all of this as you've learned more and more.
Yeah, I think I started out a certified organic grower,
Mm-hmm.
and then I just I got nailed one year with late blight in all my tomatoes and potatoes, and was nearly out of business. And this was like in 2002.
Yeah,
maybe it was 2004. I can't exactly remember. Somewhere around there. And then I was like, well, all the sustainability is great, but if it isn't economically sustainable and I can't make my mortgage, and like,
yeah,
the thing about it is, like, you've seen where my farm is. Like, I
yeah.
farm in suburbia. Like, my farm is ripe for just basically being row housing. Like, there's just one final crop left here. And so if I don't make it, it's the last resource I will have is the farm.
Yeah.
And so, I made the very, conscious decision that sustainable meant economically sustainable as well. But ironically, what that ended up doing, I think, on this farm is deepening my commitment to the biological farming philosophies, because it always became, if you're going to do something, there's got to be, like the laws of thermodynamics exist on your farm too, right? So like whatever you put into the system, you're going to deal with the consequences of that system. Like either matter can't be created or destroyed. And then back along, like even like something as simple as maybe it's not a chemical question. It's like the use of the rototiller.
Yeah.
Like when I put the rototiller in the ground to put in a planting of, baby arugula, I always tell everybody, I was like, well, I'm just about to go set my soil on fire. It's just like, you are injecting so much oxygen into the system and all the carbon is just burning,
Yeah.
and that's sad. And so what we've, I think what I finally come to is, your farm is a bank. And if you have 3 years of soil building and then you go in and you plant greens there 1 year, that your soil can help with that, like can withstand that withdrawal of that. And so then, and then this brings you to like some other really amazing teachers. Like, have you looked into like Steve Groff's stuff?
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm
So,
friends
like,
with him.
Yeah. So basically, like, he's just like got to be one of the best soil managers I know. But you're doing all this stuff, and then all of a sudden he sprays a chemical on it, and you're like, oh my God,
Yeah.
He's like, what? You mean I have to do what? So, but what we do with the no-till is like, because our corn and our beans are a lot of times no-till.
Yeah.
And so what we do with that is I have the roller crimper. And then I have a desiccant, I'm not like one of these guys who's going to go out there and spray Roundup or one of the benzenes or
Yeah.
something like that. But I have a desiccant, like, so in my back pocket. So if you go out there and you plant, a couple acres of corn, a couple acres of beans or whatever you're doing, and you roll it down the cover crop on the way, and it crimp. If it doesn't crimp right and starts coming back up, go out there with a desiccant. And then I would ask myself, okay, have I done everything to avoid this last chemical process?
Mm-hmm.
Check. Okay. Is this form of farming healthier than the alternative?
Mm-hmm.
Like, can I do this no-till organically? No, I can't plant into this kind of cover crop that way. Right.
Yeah.
And so I think that the numbers don't lie in the end. So if your soil tests are showing that your soil health is improving while you're farming it, then I think that you are basically contributing to, the overall biological activities in the system to which you are reliant upon.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not doing that, then you are basically mining.
Yeah.
And so there's a huge difference between mining and I think we should just call it farming. Like, I think people who aren't farming in that way, we should probably come up with a different name for what they're doing. But that's more philosophical than
Yeah. But I think, but what I hear you say too, and this is, I think, something that needs to be said, is that you can be certified organic and you can totally be mining the soil. And you can be,
God, I mean, Michael, be honest with yourselves. How many, if you go out and look, and you've seen a lot of farms, and I consult too.
Yeah.
There's a lot of certified organic farms that are not doing their soil, their environment, or their farm any favors.
Yeah.
At all. And they're just certified in name, and it's a shingle to sell stuff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And they don't know that. I think that it's just,
it's ignorance.
It takes a long time to even know what you're doing wrong. I mean, like, if I had a laundry list of all the mistakes I made here, you think about, your elders looking at you and shaking their heads. Like, I took over this farm for an old man, and he had the pleasure of, like, still living here. He had a life lease on the house until he died, and he would follow me around and just shake his head and be like,
yeah.
And he's like, I don't even know how you're in business. I just don't even know how you're in business. And he would say that to me for 5 years. And then the last, 4 years that we were together, it was like, he thought I finally got my act together and that we were having a good time. But
yeah. Well, I even on my own farm, we farmed and, we started producing these really great carrot crops, but we had no idea really how we did it. And then we figured it out, but it was through, a good cover crop from the year before that was tilled in late. And then we put on this leaf compost, which had a lot of biological activity.
Oh yeah. Leaf compost is awesome.
Yeah. But it took me 3 years to figure that out. And then I remember one day, I was like looking at a block of carrots that was probably around that 35,000 pounds an acre. And I was digging in the soil, and the soil was white with fungus.
Mm.
And so I sent that to, I think, Vern Grubinger, and he was like, oh, that's kind of really cool. But it took me years and years to figure that out. And even at that point, I don't think I really understood what was actually happening until the last couple of years of really starting to dive in and listen to you talk about it, and then listening to John and all these other guys, like, oh my gosh, I was actually farming the soil instead of depleting it because.
Yeah. There's that saying, and it should be the most common saying in organic farming. It's just like, but I see stickers around. It's like, feed the soil, not the plant.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's, I think that, all farmers should be like really kind of geared towards that, and like, I have my business, my long-term business partner, Greg, we get into the certain fields and like, we do our crop planning, and like he covets some of it. Like, you get a field that like, oh wait, no, the soil is way too good for that crop. We're not
wasting that on sweet corn.
You're not, no, that's not going there. That's like, you're not planting. And mostly it's my greens, like, baby spinach, baby, he's like, oh no, I just
Yeah.
got that right where I want it. You got to ruin something else.
Yeah. Okay. So just what you said there, do you think that baby greens burn soil bad?
I, I, I don't think that baby greens are doing my soil any favors at
Mm.
all. Um, I fail to see how they would be. I think that like the bed prep is so intense, and
Mm-hmm.
to get a good crop, um, and then well, the good thing about baby greens is it's 28 days and gone. And if you want to do strip cover cropping,
Yeah.
that's the way to go.
Mm-hmm.
So that's good, but that's not what I do here, and that's because our farm doesn't lend it. So like most of my green fields are triple cropped in 1 year, and so
Yeah.
they're pretty beat up by the end of the year.
Yeah.
And like I'm not proud of that, but that is the if you're again mechanization, if you're totally tooled for that one area, you don't want to pack up and move, you
Yeah.
know. And you know my farm. My farm looks like a checkerboard across three
Yes.
mile radius. So like basically, like I don't have a central place.
Mm-hmm.
And so when a greens field is set up, I mean, like that's it. Those are where the greens are, you know.
Yeah.
And
Well, but the thing about a greens field too is it cleans a lot of weed seeds out because you're going so fast, they just don't have a chance to seed. So it's actually at the end of the year, yes, you have it depleted, but you've also got a really clean weed bank.
yeah, that is true. And Greg loves going with strawberries behind my greens because he knows that like I haven't let one weed
Mm-hmm.
live, out there for a year. And that really does help when you're trying to do a new strawberry planting.
Mm-hmm.
But you are right there. I'll give you that one. But as far as soil structure, and it's one of the great reasons to follow with strawberries anyway, because you're going to have them there for about 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
So it's almost like, I mean, you're giving the soil a break from
Yeah.
any tillage. But I mean, like, yeah, I just think, I mean, I'm saying tiller, but even with the rotary hose, there's a lot of mixing going on there and a lot of aggregates getting broken up.
Yeah.
Yeah, a power harrow, not rotary hose, excuse me. Yeah. So like,
Yep.
yeah, I just think that, yeah, it's the kind of tillage I don't want to be maximizing on the farm. That's for sure.
Yeah. Well, then like, obviously too, there's that whole aspect on the back end is that if you have a late carrot crop and you're trying to get it out, it's a little bit wet. That's also helping destroy soil as well. Just the fact of harvesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so potatoes would do that. I mean, beets not so much because they're not very deep, but parsnips definitely, carrots definitely. So obviously, what do you like to follow those kind of root crops with?
Yeah, I think that well, we try to go. I mean, in an ideal world, they're fallow,
Mm. So
and
you go
so
like into a cover crop then.
well, and it's a year.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is that um, the most of those like not so much beets. I mean, beets are like more than like any of the other nutrients. It's like beets are like, if you don't have the right like boron there, you can
Mm.
really screw them up. But so I'm not going to call them a mop, but like parsnips and carrots are almost like a mop, like
Mm-hmm.
they're really mopping up some stuff out there. Well, potatoes too.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, potatoes are like, boy, they're voracious eaters. They'll just eat you out of house and home.
Yeah.
Um, but they don't tend to screw up the soil structure too badly,
Yeah. So talk to me about potatoes a little bit. I remember like when I was doing my potatoes, you always told me that I was like, Michael, you're not paying enough attention to the right points because you're missing getting the yields. And when you would tell me the yields you were getting, I was shocked because our yields were nowhere near that.
Well, I think people need to kind of just go like, biology 101 on the potato and understand that like, of course, every shoot coming out of the potato has a potential to be, three things: a leaf, um,
Mm-hmm.
a rhizome, or a nutrient root. And
Yeah.
and so what you're doing, and like a lot of people plant their potatoes and they're like, well, when they're up, they're up.
Yeah.
But we plant our potatoes, and yeah, in the spring sometimes there's rain, but like more and more, with climate being the way it is, we have these weird dry spells in like when we
Mm.
plant potatoes, and then it gets wet and then dry again. But just kind of like not the way the pattern that we used to have. And we'll, well, it doesn't matter. It is what it is. So by not, sometimes the irrigation at the early stages of your potato development are like one of the most important times of all of the time that the potato is doing anything except for maybe bulking. And I feel like if you have a good root system established by the time you're bulking, I've had like bulking phases in droughts where I have not been able to get, like I've just run out of resources to get water to the crop and still had yields that surpassed other people's yields. And that's because we're paying attention to the rhizome, the rhizome development phase. So you want to promote, so the fertilizer at planting, you want to promote. A lot of people are planting potatoes like they plant everything else. So they make these beds and they mix in the fertilizer and then they plant the potatoes. And potatoes really like bandit fertilizer 2 inches down to 2 inches away. And the reason is they're differentiating their root systems before they even tap into that bandit fertilizer. And if you mix it in, you're actually promoting more nutritional roots than rhizomes. And so basically you're creating these plants will be beautiful, but your yields won't be as high because you won't even have as many of the rhizomes. And then the water comes in because two things. If you have water present during rhizome, or it's called tuber initiation, but they're not tubers. But, so if you have water present during tuber initiation, first of all, you're not going to have scab. Yeah. Most people are like talking about pH and stuff. That all has a factor, but it really is, if it's dry, you're probably going to end up with scab with a variety that is not resistant. Yeah. And so you get away from the scab, and then with the development of that tuber, if you have enough resources there for the plant now, it's going to set a lot more tubers. And then your last thing is then, like right before flower, you want to make sure that the plants are again in prime time, because that's when they'll abort their tubers. If they plant doesn't feel it has the necessary resources to take these tubers all the way, they're going to give up some of the tubers.
Okay, so you're saying tuber initiation. That's happening before it's even broken the soil, or when does that happen?
No, it just breaks the soil. It's probably like, maybe the size of your fist.
Okay. All right, so that's important. And then when they start flowering is also very important. Those two periods.
Before they start flowering, because it's like a week or so before flower. You can see the buds. You can kind of see the week, 10 days before, are they flagging? How do they look in the field? Do they have everything they need? Because right after they flower, 10 days after that or so, they're going to start bulking.
Gotcha. Okay. So those are those two key points.
Now, everybody seems to only want to talk about like when they're going to start bulking. Yeah. Which is like, well, you know what? You've made your bed by then.
It's too late by then. Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, the nice thing is that if you have less tubers, the ones that are there don't get huge,
Yes. That's what causes big potatoes.
Yeah. But the thing is, like, if most of us are fresh market growers, right? So like, this is going to be a mix of tuber sizes. If you're like looking to, I maximize tuber set and maximize the amount that to avoid them aborting. And then, I do the best I can with bulking, but I end up with a lot of small potatoes, a lot of Bs. Very few Cs, but a lot of Bs. Customers like it. They like having a bin with many different sizes of potatoes in it, and they grab from it, and they're like, oh, this is what I want. It's not catering towards a wholesale market, but for your retail market, like mixed size potatoes is what everybody's all about. I mean, you don't even get me started on like how much money you can make on new potato production, which is a complete
That's not even the same crop as a regular potato crop.
It is not. It is not at all.
Yes. So what are your favorite varieties right now with potatoes?
I still love Nicola.
Okay.
But I wouldn't grow it if you're looking for like a lot of bulk and stuff. It's just looking for the best tasting gold potato with that waxiness. It's
Mm-hmm.
got a super low glycemic index. It's almost like in sweet potato range for like diabetics and stuff. Like it's that good on the glycemic index.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's just, the skins are always beautiful, always. If you're not like, let's say, an above average potato grower, not
Mm-hmm.
like, a fantastic person, you're not going to get them to size all that well, probably. But even at that, they will be delicious beyond belief. So I really like those for my flavor. My number one selling gold potato right now is Lehigh.
Yep.
Um, it just produces potatoes, and they're really decent flavored. I don't think that it is. I'm not in love with it on the flavor scale, but it sure packs out. Everybody who buys it seems to like it,
Mm-hmm.
and the pack out rate is nuts. So it's not only is it bulking out of the field where like you're just like you go like 70 feet and there's a bin.
Yeah.
Um, when that bin is run through the washer, you're like looking at like 3 to 5% cull.
Yeah.
Like it's just ridiculous. And so that's just like that's a nice thing. For whites, I love Reba
Mm-hmm.
for my main crop, but Envol is by far the earliest, brightest white, sweetest young fleshed potato. Like if you're going to have an early white in your repertoire, Envol is the way to go with that. But the Reba is just so hard to beat as your like producer of a white
Mm-hmm.
potato, and they hold super well. They really do store well. They just like the classic 38 degrees, and they'll treat you right. Like they don't.
Mm-hmm.
They're not like one of these microclimate ones like the Adirondack series where if you don't do exactly what they want, they're going to get soft on storage for you or something.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then what are you doing for a red?
I do 3 different reds right now. I've always wanted to get away from dark red Norland, but as far as my green sprouting new potato, like I can't beat it. Like I'm
Mm-hmm.
picking that potato. I have dug Norlands on June 10th here.
Oh, wow.
And it's just insane to think. Now, the only other one that would be quicker and a better potato would probably be the rose gold.
Yeah. But that just doesn't
But
have that color.
doesn't have the color, and it's not going to yield.
Mm.
And particularly if you're going to go with like a green sprout on it to force it,
Mm-hmm.
doesn't like that. And so, where the Norland, you almost are looking at the same yields between the green sprouted and a regular cut.
Yeah.
But the rose gold knows it was green sprouted and is pissed. And it's
Uh-huh.
like, I'm just
Yeah.
giving you 4 potatoes.
Yes. Yes.
And that's what you're getting,
Yeah.
And so, but it's definitely a superior taste for sure,
Mm-hmm.
I think. But the dark red Norland, then I grow a newish one people may not have heard of before called Fenway.
Okay. No, I haven't heard that one.
And it is by far like right on the heels of Norland, bare ground planted, non-green sprouted. I've not green sprouted it yet. I may try it. It's right on the heels of Norland, like right there.
Mm-hmm.
Its size is incredibly consistent. Skin is just beautiful. It's got a buff to it. It's not shiny. It's got like
Mm-hmm.
more of a buff finish,
Mm-hmm.
and and it's a little bit more pink than dark red Norland, but it's definitely got like a deep eye. The thing that you have to watch with those is not to you got to watch the nitrogen with those because if you're mechanically harvesting, they won't give up the spuds. Like you'll be
Oh,
bringing the whole plant up,
yeah.
and
Yeah.
it'll shake off, and it'll just be a clump of potatoes still stuck to their rhizomes up the chain, like they
Oh,
just won't
interesting.
shake
Yeah.
off. But and that's from over nitrification, which is kind of strange when you think about how much nitrogen potatoes will grab.
Yeah.
But it is a tasty white flesh red skin potato that is really reliable, and it does store remarkably for how early you harvest it. The plant dieback though is really early, so like by the end of July, beginning of August, those plants for me are kind of died back, but the yields are like
Mm-hmm.
they're like 22 to 28,000 an acre.
Mm-hmm.
So you know, it's not skimping on bulking for you, but you would think, oh, it's out of the ground so early. How is it going to store? And the answer is it's going to store great if you have the right storage to put them in.
Yeah.
And then I used to grow chieftains, but now they have the dark red chieftain.
Oh,
And I
okay.
find that the in storage, the hardest thing about a red potato is in storage color deformation.
Yeah.
And in storage, this one has been the best for me. I know a lot of people like Modoc, and I swear by it. And I like Modoc too. But I think that as far as like overall flavor and not, as long as you don't get silver scurf. If you get
Mm-hmm.
silver scurf in your field, then that's, you know, in storage, it just gets worse. So
Mm-hmm.
but if you can come out of the field minus the silver scurf, the dark red chieftain versus the regular chieftain. There's another good thing about the dark red chieftain, especially if you're a mechanical harvester, or even if you have a rough crew, is I don't know if you've ever seen this, but like 2 weeks after dieback, you go to dig up chieftains, they'll still skin on you, just coming out
Mm.
with like just your hands, like
Yeah.
as gentle as you can be. And
They don't set
the
well.
that skin does not, like, it takes forever to set up, and the dark red chieftain sets up quicker, so I like it for that.
Mm-hmm. 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 So talk to me a little bit about the challenges you face farming on coastal New Hampshire. You mentioned some of them earlier, like the costs of land and just all that there, but what are some of the other environmental things you face?
Well, just inland from us, the Hardys over at Brookdale Fruit
Mm-hmm.
Farm,
Yep.
he'll tease me because he'll look at the weather. It'll be 75 degrees, beautiful May day, 75 degrees, gentle breeze, and it'll be 40 here, and I'll be
Mm.
socked in fog, you
Yeah.
know? And that is, that's a hard one to get around.
Yeah. Just you don't have the heat index to mature the crops.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what that means is that they can beat you to market with so many different things.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I just don't worry about that anymore. But what it does do, is it presents disease challenges
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that a lot of other people don't have. You
Mm-hmm.
know, and that's really difficult, because you got to remember that like most of the fungal diseases that we're being challenged with can be combated with breaking the cycle of its critical leaf wetness period and
Mm-hmm.
temperature. Well, if you're in a sunny with a breeze, the leaves dry out and the temperature changes. Like, boom, you've broken the cycle. The fungus has to start from zero. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
like pick up where it left off. Starts from zero. If you get a couple of socked in days in the 40s or something around here, basically the fungal cycles have started, and maybe some of them have gone all the way through. Maybe they're even thinking about putting on fruiting bodies. Now you maybe are in infection. Maybe you're not even in
Mm.
prevention or anything like that. But this new round of biologicals where you're spraying a plant with either alternative fungus or bacteria.
Mm-hmm.
And so they work two ways. The funguses sometimes just take up space.
Yeah.
Like, and I like that.
Yeah.
That seems like a really great strategy.
They just coat
And
the plant.
they basically like they eat the same things, live on the same thing. They're like, yeah, but they're just not gonna be damaging to the plant. They're benign, but
Yeah.
then they like take up all of the surface area. And so when the other fungus shows up, there's no room in the inn.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's occupied, and so that's great. And then well, where you can get all this information, it's amazing, is Meg McGrath's site on
Mm-hmm.
the Cornell thing. And she's technically out on Long Island, but like she definitely has the most amazing breakdown of the biologicals and the aids, the plant stimulus. She's done a lot of work
Mm-hmm.
with those plant activation
Yeah. Yeah.
enzymes. That seems like, I'm gonna definitely be pursuing like
Yeah.
what that is about. Like if you can wake up the plant to defend itself when you get, because now she's linked all this in with that new NOAA system, and you can get alerts right on your phone. Yeah, your location, you are now in a yellow zone for this, this, and this. You know, because you've met the environmental. I mean, how would you feel if like 10 years ago somebody could tell you that?
Oh my gosh, that would have been huge. Yeah.
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 Yeah. And so, but those are the challenges we have here is like, you know, the weather is different, you know, we, you know, it also, the seacoast giveth too, like, everybody is like, I mean, I have friends 15 miles away that are frosted, you know, 2 weeks before me.
Mm-hmm. So you get that extended season.
I get, you know, again, ocean breeze. It's like a frost is coming, but I have the wind off the ocean. The ocean is like 45, 50 degrees.
Mm-hmm.
So like, it's just pushing that cold air around. And, you know, it's saving my tukish for, you know, another couple of weeks. And that's 2 weeks that nobody else has anything at market. So that's the other side of what you were saying, like, oh, they'll beat me to market, but you know, Brookdale, they frost and freeze weeks before I do.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Now, do you have a little bit cooler in the summer too? Does that give you an advantage with greens at all?
I don't think so. I mean, yeah, I guess some days it might be cooler.
Yeah.
But I mean, you know, a bunch of 90-degree days is a bunch of 90-degree days, you know, I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't seen too much of a difference with that. The thing that's given me the advantage with the greens is mechanical harvest.
Mm-hmm.
And Chris Callahan's coming here next week to, we're going to farm hack. We got a film crew coming. I'll give it to you. We're going to farm hack a hydro cooler.
Very cool.
So you know your bubbler design?
Yeah.
So we're putting an in and an out of that and running it through, like, you know, those water bubblers that you get your drinking water out of?
Yes. Yep.
And there's a cooler under there.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we're going to be pumping the water through one of those coolers back into the bubbler.
So it's basically giving you cold water the entire time so it won't warm up on you.
Well, beyond that,
it's cooling it, actually driving it colder.
Yeah, the water comes out of the tap at 45, 50 degrees.
Yeah.
We're going to lower it down to 32.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so we're running it through the rinse tunnel first to take the field heat out and lower the temperature, because you can't step temperatures more than 10 degrees at a time. Otherwise you have infiltration.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
So you have to step it at some point. So we step it and then put it in there. That's cooling the leaf all the way down to 32 degrees. You spin them real fast, put them in the cooler. Now you're really gaining shelf life.
Mm-hmm.
Like the differences are amazing. Like refrigeration is an amazing thing.
Mm-hmm. 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 Yeah, I know that.
I think like that's because you get the mechanical harvester. You're out there first thing in the morning, right?
Yeah.
And so you know you're 200, 300, 400 pounds into greens in between 20 to 40 minutes.
Yeah.
Out of the field, whereas your field time, if you're hand cutting or even using a farmer's friend or something, is going to be longer.
Yeah.
Then you're taking those greens and immediately putting them through the rinse tunnel. So you've already taken, you know, maybe, 20 to 40 degrees out of them. And then you're bringing them the additional, 10 to 15 degrees down to like just above freezing. Now they're in stasis and you move them into the walk-in cooler, which is sitting at 31.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you're probably looking at least 2, if not 3 weeks of shelf life.
Well, we can get 2 weeks here at our shelf. So I don't know, and we're still selling them at the stand.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. All right. And that is the end of part 1 of this episode with Andre Cantelmo from Heron Pond Farm. All right. So Andre and I were supposed to record part 2 just because part 1 ran so long a few days later, and then, life happened. And then the whole coronavirus thing hit, and his farm had massive, massive requests for food. And so he's been very busy with that. So we, needless to say, haven't recorded part 2, which was supposed to air at the end of part 1 to make a full episode. So we're going to air part 1 just because it's such a great part, and we'll get Andre back on once he gets a little bit more free time and is able to record part 2, because I know you guys enjoyed this part. So it's just going to air by itself, but stay tuned for part 2 with Andre, and I know you will absolutely enjoy it. So there you have it, another episode in the books. So I'd love if you would hop on over to iTunes and leave us a rating and a review. Those mean everything to us. We love to hear what you're thinking. If you have a podcast guest that you can recommend, please pop on over to the Thriving Farmer Podcast website and leave us a review. That's thrivingfarmerpodcast.com.